Welcome back, everybody, to the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice European Server Qualifier, where we are getting ready for another Protoss vs Zerg matchup. This should be a cracker, Todd. A classic. A classicer. El Clasico. ShoWTimE versus Nerchio.
Yeah, these two have met so many times, and very recently, actually, I was casting Ladder Heroes with Ravi, Fear Dragon, and they met in the finals. And they had a very one-sided series in which ShoWTimE won with a 3-0. So looking forward to seeing if Nerchio can do better this time around. Let's get into it here. Map number 1, Abyssal Reef, starting in the top left-hand side of the map, playing as the blue Protoss. It is Arma Team's ShoWTimE.
ShoWTimE is looking really good so far early in the year, right? I think compared to last year, things are already shaping up for him. It feels
I stopped typing him up as much. So definitely gained him some traction.
He's been released of the Johan Merlo curse. Perhaps. Over here on the right bottom side of Abyssal, we're looking at the main man that we already saw play against StarCraft II earlier on the stream. He's going up against ShoWTimE. This time it is Nerchio.
So ShoWTimE, in the recent series that he had against Nerchio, he was going a lot for that one build where he opens Stargates and he gets 3 gateways in his wall, but before he has warp gates, he makes 3 adepts out of those 3 gates, plus the one that he makes in the start. So then he has 4. And as warp gate finishes, morphs his gateways, warps 3 more adepts, and he does this 7 adept push.
No glaives.
Yeah, no glaives. That Nerchio just wasn't ready for. Nerchio kept on trying to go for Ling straight into Hydras with skipping Banes, and just not making enough Lings and not making enough Queens. And every single time ShoWTimE made the most out of those 7 adepts, got ahead. He mixed in different builds as well. Like ShoWTimE was just in complete control that whole best of 5 that they played.
If I just listen to what you just said, I do feel like that sounds like something that's quite powerful. Because what Zerg players always want is have a little break where they can drone, make units, then drone up again, or or go for a timing attack. But if you have to worry about 1 adept, okay, that's a couple links. 2 adepts, a couple links. 3 adepts, can I deal with the initial links? Maybe I need to make more. And then suddenly it's 7, and then you have to react a lot to it.
Yeah.
And obviously, if it's 7 adepts without glaives, it's going to hit pretty fast. So, I mean, if ShoWTimE took him out 3-0, there is a very good chance that I think we're going to see more of that.
And the thing about ShoWTimE as well is that even if that fails, his late game is just so insanely good. Like we just saw earlier when ShoWTimE was playing, he struggled against Nerchio, in that, I think that was the the first game,
yeah, first
right?
game.
That went on for long, and he got to the mothership / carrier / Tempest. And he had a very hard time dealing with Nerchio's, multiple attacks, like the siege at the top and stuff. I feel like ShoWTimE in that phase of the game is just so good that if he gets there, I almost feel like it's the Zergs that feel like they are disadvantaged against him, because he knows how to control Tempest perfectly. His mix will almost always be perfect as well. He'll pump out like a certain amount of Tempest first, then goes into carriers and Void Rays. So we'll see if it evolves into any kind of game like this. The fact that we're on Abyssal Reef is maybe a little bit more encouraging towards that.
Whenever ShoWTimE opens up with a Phoenix, Todd, I don't trust him. Because we all think of ShoWTimE as a very macro-oriented player, but I also think he's the type of player that if he opens up with a Phoenix, I feel like he wants to hide something. That first Phoenix is going to kill the Overlord. From that point on, it's going to be very difficult for Nerchio to figure out exactly what he's going up against. And ShoWTimE is the type of player that every now and then suddenly drops 7 gates, but most of the time he does it with a Twilight upgrade, and this time there is no Twilight, so...
I believe that's true, by the way. We just won 2-0 against Maru.
That's correct.
And in second game, I think he just scouted the proxy and Maru just tapped out, so...
Yeah, in the first game it was a 2-Rex proxy as well. I think Maru was perhaps...
He had enough of the delay.
Yeah. I think he was perhaps hoping, he's like, I'm Maru, I can play cross-server, right? Korea to Europe, and then he played a couple games and he's like, oh, come on, why did I even sign up for this thought? Why did I even qualify for this qualifier? So guys, Maru is out. Now this doesn't mean that Maru won't be at the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice. I still think there's a very good chance that we are going to see him there. Of course, there's going to be an open bracket. I mean, the prize pool for Katowice is massive. $400,000, Todd. It's insane.
Yeah.
How much was it when you won the Intel Extreme Masters?
15,000 euro.
For first, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty good. Was it overall? 15?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Don't remember. Don't quite remember.
So 15 turned into 150. You were born too early, Todd. You were born too early.
I was born a decade too early. It would be nice to see Maru there.
I think he will.
Mug.
if you just look at the payouts, right, like even top 8 makes a very legitimate amount of money. And I think it's safe to say that if you're Maru and you're in shape, you should always go there. And maybe you make it to the semifinals or maybe even the finals. Of course, there are some scary Protosses, but Maru is Maru, Todd, and I'm quite sure we're going to see him at Katowice anyway.
ShoWTimE finding some damage here with these first 2 oracles. We see a prism here being made in the meantime, and one thing that Protosses have gotten so good these days at is using double prism and really reinforcing a lot where the Zerg doesn't have enough. Like, I feel like it's so funny because like you got warp gates and then you got prisms across the map. It's almost like, you know, a mini Nidus, a gateway to the opponent's space where you literally warp in units. And a lot of Protosses, they stepped up their game with that quite a bit.
Yeah, in the past, I've seen multiple games of ShoWTimE in a row as well, where he has openings like this. And exactly, you know, he has a couple of oracles where he picks up drones every now and then he unloads 2 adepts. These sentries are in a lot of problem. Both sentries actually go down. I actually think these zealots are not going to be enough either, Todd. A single shield battery would have made ShoWTimE's life a lot easier. ShoWTimE, what are you doing? He's going to lose a lot of these probes as well.
Very unusual for ShoWTimE to make this kind of mistake here. Don't know, he must have been looking across the map at
the prism.
Yeah, something else.
What he likes to do, Todd, is like fly in with 2 oracles, pick off a couple drones, and then the prism shows up and he just drops 2 adepts. That's all he does, right? He runs into the mineral line, kills a couple drones, shades out, shades into the natural, gets a few more there as well. I think ShoWTimE is really good with his prism and his 2 adepts, but took definitely way too much damage at home against those links.
Yeah, losing zealots, sentries, and some probes as well. You definitely don't want that to happen. And that base is still not reinforced. There is no cannon, no shield battery, and most of all, just the 2 oracles here ready to defend.
Which are out of energy, Todd. I think these oracles are pretty much out of energy. Ooh, ShoWTimE is falling apart here, Johan. He's taking a lot of damage on the prism. He's going to lose 1 star again. 8, 9, 10 workers very quickly, and he's going to be forced to stop mining of this base for a little while. ShoWTimE is picking him apart, Todd.
Nerchio.
Shoot me, Nerchio.
This is weird to see ShoWTimE make these mistakes. Like, very rarely will you ever see him not be reinforced. Usually he's missed to solid, right? Back at home, that like you attack, he lands the perfect force fields, he has just enough to hold. And Nerchio is definitely feeling the momentum in his favor here right now, and I think he's going to play quite aggressive behind this.
I mean, even end up losing one of these adepts, so this kind of sucks for ShoWTimE, because if you have 2 adepts, you can one-shot the workers. With just 1 adept, you know, it takes a little longer.
What do you think of this?
I mean, ambitious is what I think of it, though. I mean, maybe he feels like if he doesn't get Storm in time, he's just going to go up against insane amount of Hydras, Zerglings, and Banelings. And he needs Storm right now, but there's still not a single shield battery here. And without a shield battery, it's actually going to be very hard to defend against these Zerglings, Banelings, and more Zerglings streaming in as well.
Yeah, the Banelings start connecting, and Nerchio will take game like number 1 here. Just like that. It is all over.
That's funny, right? Because you look at the first 6 minutes of this game and it feels everything is going well for ShoWTimE, and it even caught me off guard a little bit. I'm like, what am I seeing? You know, it felt like we saw a couple of things that all didn't make sense. 1 shield battery, it keeps the sentries alive a little bit longer, and if the sentries stay alive a little bit longer, he wipes in the zealots. He doesn't take the damage, he doesn't lose the probes. The follow-up wave of links doesn't really do the damage, and we are looking at a completely different game. 1 shield battery.
I wonder why didn't ShoWTimE use the similar build to what I talked about, because he had so much success with this against Nerchio. Maybe they played on ladder more recently and Nerchio was able to shut it down better. Like, makes me very curious.
Maybe it's an Abyssal Reef thing?
Yeah, possibly as well. Like, maybe they, like, obviously you never know the mind games, you know, you can't read their minds, but yeah, that maybe the build order also it wasn't as ideal to try and counter what Nerchio was doing, but obviously like, it all started going downhill when those links killed the sentries on the 3rd base. And if you're Nerchio, you know, that's not even that big a risk, right? Like making the links obviously is an investment, but running to the 3rd base, you can just run, see what there is. If the defense is there, you just pull back. But now Nerchio was like, he saw the 2 sentries, he was like, oh yeah, I know what's happening from there. Jump on top of them and got quite a few snipes.
It's funny how quickly a game of StarCraft II can snowball out of control, because things were looking all right for ShoWTimE in that game. There was really not that much to worry about. And suddenly one thing went wrong and it felt like we were watching a domino effect where even my brain was going wrong as well, Todd, because I had no idea what I was watching anymore. Let's take a look at the brackets, because we've got a bunch of updates for you guys. This is the last match of the round of 8, if I am correct. Yes, all the other round of 8 matches have wrapped up already. So the bottom semi-final is UThermo versus Saro, as UThermo took out... Damn, Bly took out Snoot, Todd, in the first round. And then UThermo took out Bly.
Bly on fire, man.
Except, and Nemchar. Damn, look at these upsets, Todd. We've got Nemchar in the semi-final of the upper bracket as well. Of course, we all know that Nemchar is very legit, and he's been, you know, top 5, top 6 Zerg in Europe for a long time. But taking out Elazer 2-0 in a big qualifier like this, that is a very noteworthy result.
Yeah, you would definitely expect Elazer to potentially be one of the guys here to make it. And if not, you know, to at least maybe lose to ShoWTimE or Nerchio, maybe Cyril. But losing against Namshar, yeah, that's a big upset, despite it being, you know, ZVZ and best of 3. But he's still got the lower brackets to try to make it to the big tournament in his home country as well. I'm sure it's pretty important to him.
So here we have a couple of these updates of our lower brackets. Snoot did manage to bounce back and he took out Trap 2-1. Once again, those games were played on the European server, but a good victory by Snoot nevertheless. Drogo defeated Creator 2-0. Koreans are falling left and right, Todd, as True did take out Hellraiser, and then True also took out Maru. So True is the last Korean standing, is that correct? Yes.
And you saw what Elaser tweeted earlier, right?
Yeah.
Zero Koreans will make it.
He wasn't wrong, Todd. I kind of figured it was going to be hard. And once again, this is not because, oh my god, Europe destroys Korea. We're playing on the European server, and these guys have a lot of ping. And StarCraft at the highest level, guys, every second matters.
Yeah.
And if you're a second too late with your clicks, you're going to have a tough time, even if you are Maru or Creator.
And also, once upon a time, like Koreans were so good that, you know, it wouldn't be that much of a problem of playing in Europe. And I think for a lot of matches it happened. Remember when Tails would play on all the tournaments in Europe? And like I remember he was living with Naniwa, and Naniwa told me the story of like Tails telling him, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go play amateur league," and what he meant was playing on Europe, the tournaments, and he would win many of them.
I remember that Xian and Revival used to play the Go for StarCraft 2s all the time.
And they won like 50 of them.
Yeah, they had one build. It was usually like you macro up a little bit and then like 55 drones. They made nothing but roaches, rallied them across the map. Didn't even look at it, just focus on the injects. Back then, you know, a lot of the Europeans were still a little bit lackluster perhaps in the macro department, but that's not the case anymore, Todd. These guys have all gotten so good, and it's... yeah, I mean, you need to play your best to beat them, and with 200 ping, it's going to be very tough to beat them.
The gap has been closed quite a bit.
I mean, let's actually see. I mean, we can hype them up all we want, and absolutely we will. But last year, Katowice, we also had big hopes and dreams. But in the end, you know, I think we had one foreigner in the top 8, and the rest was all Korean. And I think this year, guys, Katowice is going to be once again such an incredibly stacked event. But I think some of our guys have grown a lot. I think Elaser became a lot more mature. I think Cero is even better than he was a year ago. Of course, Neep. I mean, Neep's Neep. So, ShoWTimE is in shape again. Nerchio is Mr. Consistency. I think we're going to have a couple of deep runs by them.
I remember, last year, especially like guys like Cyril, they started to do a lot of damage. We were like, he's going to do it. And then like he lost really hard, I think, to Dark or something.
3-0 against Dark. Back then,
Dark against foreigners, man.
Yeah, that is something that we had until the most recent WCS Global Finals, where that streak was finally ended. Either way, we are getting ready to hop into game number 2 between ShoWTimE and Nerchio. Let's see if ShoWTimE can get things together after he started off all right on Abyssal, but things fell apart very quickly.
Let's do it.
Catalyst, as I believe, our map. I mean, we can also look at us. I do enjoy looking at you, Todd. Sometimes I sit at home and I'm like, you know, I wonder if Todd is live.
I'm the one doing that because you're streaming every day for every hour of the day, Roddy. All right, game number 2 here. We're on Catalyst, starting in the top left-hand side of the map, playing as the Blue Protoss. It is Arma Team's ShoWTimE. Trying to mount a comeback.
Do you think ShoWTimE is that much of a veteran that a game like that doesn't really bother him? Or do you think even ShoWTimE is a little bit annoyed after a game like that?
I don't think it should annoy him, but you never know. You know, like, only innovation has no emotions, so... Maybe it does a little bit. Of course, our Polish Zerg is spotting in the right bottom side of Catalyst. He is the one and only Euronics Nerchio. As we are taking a look at this probe in the middle of the map. It's pretty crazy, by the way, how long Nerchio has been around the scene and like how competitive he's been the whole time. It almost feels day one, right? It wasn't exactly day one that I heard of Nerchio. Like a couple of guys when I think day one of the StarCraft II Wings of Liberty beta, I think the Muslim, I think Dimaga, I think Red. You know, like those are 3 names that immediately... And oh, really? I don't know if you remember him, this Belgium Zerg player. Yeah. He actually won the very first Go for. But Nerchio came up maybe like a month or 2 after that, started playing random, did really well with random. But then he was getting so good that he was getting very close to the professionals already. It's like, well, maybe I should pick a race. And he decided to go with Zerg, and looking at his career earnings stat, I don't think it was a poor choice. Yeah. I wonder how he would have done with another race, actually. I still think good, but I don't know if he would have been able to keep it up for 7 years, though. I feel like over the 7 years, Zerg has been the most consistent, right? Like sometimes they've been slightly weaker, sometimes they've been quite strong. Yeah, but like there could be discussion around Neeb as well, right? Because he played Terran. didn't have that much success, then switched to Protoss, and then had a lot of success.
Yeah, of course. But you also shouldn't forget that when Neep played Terran, he was still incredibly young, and he was also still up and coming. And he already, you know, he made it into WCS. Neep flew to Germany to compete in WCS when he was like, how old was he back then? He must have just turned 16 if that rule was already in place. And I remember him giving Polt one hell of a run for its money in TVT when Polt was still one of the absolute best in the world. So I think if Neep would have stuck with Terran, I'm not saying he would have been just as successful, but I absolutely do believe that he would have been still very successful.
Yeah. I mean, it's not impossible by a foreigner to be really good with Terran, right? We got guys like Special.
And we had Thorzane in the past, we had Jinro in the past. But it's hard, though. I mean, I think we can all be honest about that. Terran is a very difficult race to play. All right, so we've got
I saw the video on Reddit of you talking about Terrans.
I'm trying to win back my Terran friends. Nah. You can say what you want.
Good, man.
Over the years, I've always answered the question when people ask me, what is the most difficult race to play? I've always said Terran. I do believe that's true. I think Terran is powerful. You know, right now they're struggling. But, you know, when it comes to how much Terran has to do to win, especially if you go over the years, you know, through all the medals, all the things that Terran had to face, Terran is tough, man.
An Oracle into a Phoenix here for ShoWTimE. No additional gates just yet. They're going to go down. You know, now it looks like. Oh, no, it's a Robo, actually.
Yeah, this time it could be a Robo 8-gate or something. You know, I don't trust ShoWTimE.
8-gate?
Yes, ShoWTimE is crazy. Even though he's taking the gases in the natural. But ShoWTimE is the type of player that really uses the metagame advantage to himself in a best-of-3 as well. You know, he shows up the first game, it was in Phoenix, just a macro game, just Oracles. And then the second game he does that, he could suddenly switch things around and go for the all-in. This Oracle thought is actually very successful. Getting 4 kills, that's not something you see super often these days. There's the Twilight thought. Soon you're going to see L'Explosion. Okay.
There it is. How many is it going to be, though? Like, I feel like 8 is definitely a bit extreme, especially because now he took the gases on his natural, which, as far as I can tell, he's mining from. So it's going to be 3 additional ones. So I think he's going to be charged with the Templar Archives. That's also a very good build that we see a lot of Protosses do, where because you have charge loss and Archons, even if the Zerg somehow goes for roaches, it's still very hard for them because Guerrilla Reconstitution is not going to be ready on time. And a lot of the time, they skip that anyway. In which case, the Archons and Charge Loss are even more dangerous against, you know, potential Ling, even Banes, and then Hydras. And you can keep a Zerg on the lower walker counts thanks to that build while you take your own third base, tech up, you know, go into a Forge and all that, and then you can go into Storm later on. I want to see the longer game. I want to see some Tempest, some Mothership, and some Air here. I think that would be really cool to see between these two when they have this kind of game.
I think you're spot on about the Archons because he did take that 3rd and 4th gas, and we can see the Templar Archives being thrown down. So ShoWTimE is going to go up to 3 bases. He's not going to go super crazy on the gateway count, but 4 gates means that he can warp in, you know, like 2 Archons at a time. And then if you warp in like 4 Zealots behind it and maybe 4 more, like 2 Archons and 8 Zealots can do a devastating amount of damage.
Just waiting for the Templar Archives to finish here. ShoWTimE will have just enough gas here to get these guys. I love how the Phoenix is there as well. If an Overlord flies nearby,
I think this is a build that Stats has done a couple times, right? You open up with the Oracle, but I think sometimes Stats goes double Oracle and then follow it up with the Prism and the Archons and the Zealots. I was watching HearthStone stream and I saw HearthStone bust out this build a couple of times as well.
Yeah, he does it quite a bit.
Yeah, against players like Stefano. And it is incredibly powerful if the layer is late. But the layer wasn't late this game for Nerchio. Look at this, Todd. 5 minutes, 50 seconds, and 4 Hydras are already on the way. These Queens have to be careful, though. He wants to go for the Prism immediately. Gets the wraparound. Are these Archons stuck? No, they're not stuck just yet, but the Prism does take quite a bit of damage.
Yeah, ShoWTimE had to get out ASAP here because the Queens were moving towards a position where the Prism couldn't even have picked up the Archons here if he had waited any longer. ShoWTimE sees the amount of units that were on the other side of the map, not just the Queens, but Masslings, and he knows that Nerchio's walker counts has been kept low here because he had to make enough units to hold against this. What does he do? Starts Storm immediately and goes into more High Templars. And as long as he takes the gases on his 3rd base quickly, he's going to get so many of those High Templars with Storms that against Ling, Bane, Hydra, it should be fine. But the X factor is always going to be the lurkers that then Zerg can transition into. And remember, Nerchio, for the longest time I've said this, he's the best Infestor user in Europe. But he's the best lurker user, in my opinion, as well. Like in so many... Remember the one series that they had? I think it was in Poitiers?
Yeah, no, in Tour, right?
Oh, yeah, Tour.
Yeah, that was a legendary. I mentioned it already earlier today with Kalaris. That game was a promotion clip for StarCraft, but an actual real game as well. I mean, ShoWTimE is scouting. He is denying a little bit of creep, which is actually very useful, especially against Hydras and Lurkers. So these Archons have not been totally useful, but I do kind of think that he was hoping for more, though. Like, you know, pick up the Archons a couple of times. That good old Prism Archon dance. You get like 10, 12 Zerglings for free. You push the creep back, you up in a couple Zealots, maybe you get 2 or 3 Queens. Not getting really anything with the opening. That must have been kind of painful.
Yeah, the problem is he saw the amount of Queens and he was like, all right, peace, I'm out of here.
Oh, if that's Dark or Dice thought, that's a lot of Zerglings in the main base. Does he not warp in a sentry? No, he doesn't warp in a sentry, which means that all of these links are going to run into the natural and the main, and indeed the floodgates are open. But it seems like ShoWTimE feels like he can deal with this without losing too much.
Yeah, nice block here in the main base by ShoWTimE, warping in Zealots where the entrance to the middle line was. Did he lose the Aero Probes?
He definitely lost a couple, I think 3 or 4, but it just didn't really pop up yet. I mean, he didn't even have shield batteries in those main mineral lines. Can we take a look at that? Wow, only 1 probe went down. Was that a scouting probe even? Wow, okay, that's crazy.
67 walkers to 72 now. You have to think ShoWTimE's pretty happy with the way this has gone. He could easily go into a 4th phase. And like I said, the X factor is always going to be the lurkers there, with which Nerchio is so good. If he can set up a siege on one of those bases, because of the way ShoWTimE has played, I don't think his immortal count is very high, which you wouldn't want to have against lurkers.
Yep, Archons are alright, but Archons obviously don't have the range that Immortals have, and you really do want to have a couple of Immortals as the backbone of your army, because they do serious damage on Lurkers. And Archons, yeah, if they get closed up, you know, if they're still alive, it's good, but you're never really going to have like 6, 7 Archons shooting at Lurkers at once. So, I think ShoWTimE feels you, and he's making some Immortals as well.
Nerchio didn't have the economy to start a lot of Lurkers at once, but the fact that he's already mining on 8 gases, because he saturated once on his 4th ASAP, is definitely something good here for him. What is this? 4 Hydras run by, just like snipes and stuff?
I mean, they are all going to die. At the same time, Nerchio is making some room for himself on the left side of the map. So maybe we can take a look at that army. That's a lot of Hydras, but there is a stasis ward there as well. Is he just going to run past the Zealot? What exactly is he hoping for? He's going to try to kill the robot. That means no additional Immortals for you. But Todd, I feel like these Hydras are in a rough position. I guess they live, damn.
They got muscular augments, man. Might as well call them Usain Bolt.
What is this? Some stutter stepping Terran micro? He's like stimming and like sniping Zealots one by one. Getting the Observer there as well.
Yeah, that's the big deal, because now Lurkers are going to come into play. And where's the Oracle? Did he lose that? He's remaking one now. Oh, okay, I think ShoWTimE realizes that he's facing Lurkers. Trying to go across the map with a lot of charge loss there, but they get intercepted.
That one cannon
he's coming in from behind.
It's actually very important, because that's the only protection he has. Those storms are massive though. Landing in the middle of the Hydras. The Hydras are very exposed. Yes, Lurkers are good, but look at the amount of Zealots. There's no way that Nerchio can stick around.
Yeah, and he starts running away here. He actually dodged the revelation by the Oracle. If he had stayed there, everything would have been revealed and he might have lost everything instantly. But yeah, 2 more Robo on the way here for ShoWTimE. How many Immortals is he on? Doesn't feel like he has many, but he has so many Archons anyway. Yeah, he could take on his army.
He's got 3. It feels like, where is Nerchio's supply, right? Nerchio has 180 supply, and all I see is a couple of exposed Lurkers or small groups of Hydras.
Yeah, big run by bottom left here, for which Nerchio should be ready. I guess that's where his supply is here, ready to defend. Yeah. Or is it?
Still kind of paying attention to this fight in the middle of the map, but that's nice at least. If Nerchio is able to get all of these Zealots and obviously keep the hatchery alive, this is quite decent, and this hatch will live for now. Lost 8 drones, kind of painful, but he still has 68, so that's a reasonable amount of works to live with. But I just feel that ShoWTimE has barely lost anything in the last few minutes, and Nerchio has been losing a lot of expensive units.
Yeah, ShoWTimE is just looking to try and land some storms here. I don't think he wants to full-on take an engagement unless Nerchio gives him a really good one. Nerchio, it feels like he needs to siege here because there is no sign of a hive, so it's not like he's trying to buy time for Broodlords or something.
This is kind of an awkward fight, right? There are a couple of Immortals there on the left side as well. These Lurkers get a couple of hits off, and ShoWTimE relentless with his harassment. He's getting a couple more Zealots on the left bottom side, and that's very annoying this time for Nerchio. And don't forget, this hatch is already a little bit bruised up.
That's never going to stop as well. Like ShoWTimE is like, you wanted to run by Lynx in the game 1. How do you like me now? Taking an engagement here with just some of his army against those Lurkers needs to be careful. He's going to start on pulling back some big storms land here on some of this army.
Yeah, his army was a little desynced there. These High
Both armies are super bruised.
Yeah, these armies were too far. Excuse me, the High Templars were a little bit too far in the back, but I still like this for ShoWTimE because it feels like there's no way home for Nerchio. And he lost his hatchery in the left bottom side against those 4 Zealots.
These guys went on a rampage.
Yep.
The 4 Protoss Musketeers.
I approve. I mean, Nerchio still has that fort base in the middle of the map as well, so not all hope is lost. He's not that. But in the previous games where it always felt that Nerchio was ready to go into maybe Broodlords, it's obvious that this game he has no money for it.
Yeah. Check out the resources lost.
Yeah, I was curious about it as well.
I think ShoWTimE is like 5,000 resources ahead. I think it was 15 to 10K, but he's going to be even more than that here in a second. And as he lands some massive storms, and ShoWTimE takes game number 2 and gets the equalizer here with a very solid game. This is what you expect, right, out of this series, this kind of game here out of ShoWTimE.
You said it in the beginning, you feel that if Nerchio is going to split up his army a lot and he's going to try to hit from multiple angles, that you feel ShoWTimE is solid enough to deal with that. Well, he almost made it look easy, right? You look at all these attacks and they don't look that intimidating. It's a couple Hydras here, it's a couple Hydras there, and ShoWTimE, he's got enough. That's what it is. Like, he always had more than enough to deal with it. That Zergling run by, I was like, oh my god, if this Stalker dies, there's going to be 45 Lings in his base. And ShoWTimE is like, yeah, it's going to be 45 Lings in my base. That means they will all die and they will not do anything. Yeah. Like, he lost one probe. How do you lose one probe?
Yeah. It's easy to look at this game and be like, oh yeah, Protoss is so good against Zerg, but then trust me, like, you meet them on the ladder, and if you play Protoss, it's really not that easy at all. Especially the part, I would say, against